Welcome to Moments with Marianne. I am so delighted to be introducing a very special guest, Vincent Genna, and he's here today to talk to us about being a psychic medium. So welcome to the show, Vincent.
Well, Marianne, thank you so much for having me. I'll always feel blessed being able to do shows like this, especially with luminaries like yourself.
Oh, well, gosh, I'm the one who's honored. I mean, you are so amazingly gifted. I'm so delighted we get to spend this time together. And, I think a lot of times people want to know, like the man behind all this giftedness. Have you always had this level of communication with spirit?
Oh, gosh, no. No, I wish I did. I wish I could be as romantic as saying that when I was a little kid, I walked in my bedroom and there was Archangel Michael sitting on the edge of my bed and nobody else saw him and, wow, mommy, look at what I can do. And no, it didn't happen quite that way. I actually had a tormented youth, and it wasn't until I was 28 years old, and it was an attempt to help a friend. I was actually pleading with God to give me some abilities to help a friend whose life was falling apart. And so it then began to happen to me like a tsunami. It wasn't with me my entire life. However, maybe in hindsight, it was when I look back now. I used to get totally picked on by my relatives, being called the little professor, because I was the little kid who would and get myself involved in every adult conversation and throw in answers, and they used to get annoyed at me, and Mom used to beat me for that. But maybe that was a sign of it. But it wasn't shown to me until 28 when I asked to be able to use something. And so it turned into a Steven Spielberg movie all over and around me, Marianne. It was one of those incredible things. And in my early beginnings, I wanted to be a professional actor, singer, and dancer. That's all I cared about. That was the resilience that helped me get through my youth and the torment that I went through then. And so I was married at 28 years old to my high school sweetheart, and we just, we're trying to live a normal life. We had a child, but like I said, I had this friend who actually was my major tormentor in school when I was younger. He instigated all the jocks to beat me up, and at our high school reunion, he became a friend of mine. He became a friend. As a matter of fact, he became a very close friend, like a brother. And when I saw his life and him hurting, and there was no place for him to go, he was one that would never share his woes with anybody. I just knew something was going wrong. I just knew that time that I spent with him. And I had no idea what to do with that, how to help him. I did not have that background. And so all of a sudden this wisdom and knowledge and when I mean a typhoon and a tsunami, it really was like that. It was like a Steven Spielberg movie where all of a sudden I'm being introduced to psychics that I never knew before. And the psychics are telling me I'm going to be a spiritual teacher. I'm not going to be a performer, and which I never wanted to hear. That these gifts started opening up, and I was reading minds, literally. And my wife and my friends that were around me at the time and I was sharing this with were, thinking, what's going on with this guy here? Wait, I didn't even finish his sentence and he's finishing it for me, or I was going to ask that. How'd you know? Or I did that yesterday. How do you know that? And it kept going on, and day after day, it was just filling my mind, and words were just filling in there, wisdom, words that I'd never heard before, philosophies and ideas. And thank goodness my wife was with me since I was 17 years old, because she knew that I didn't have that background at all. And so when it was happening to me, she was wondering where that was coming from. And so she knew I wasn't crazy and I wasn't making it up because she had known me so well. And so we did a lot of research, and it just kept happening bigger and bigger. And then dead people, swirling smoke, apparitions. It was just one thing after another. Everything that you find in a book that happens and that's listed under metaphysical realm and anomalies, that's exactly what happened to me, Marianne. It was crazy.
A lot of my friends that have gone through like a similar experience, they talk about, not really having support. And it sounds like you really had the love and support of your wife during all of this to you guys were kind of figuring it out together.
Well, absolutely. And in the beginning, the both of us, she comes from a Jewish background, and I come from a Roman Catholic background, so she didn't know whether to call the rabbi or to call the priest to have me exorcised, to call Bellevue to have me locked up. But she believed in me. You see, that was the whole thing. She believed in me, and together we just kept trying to figure out, and we were directed to different places to read what was going on. And interestingly enough, one day with all of this happening, I was home taking care of my son, and I'm watching Oprah Winfrey on TV, and Shirley MacLaine is on. And she's talking. It was the first day she came out of the spiritual closet and introduced her book, Out on a Limb, where she explained some of the phenomena that she was going through. And I'm sitting there going, oh, my gosh, that's exactly some of the stuff that I was experiencing. And now the star was on Oprah explaining it, and she actually helped normalize my experiences. And I even had contacted her management company because she was going around doing lectures, and I was actually going to be a volunteer at one of her lectures in New York. And then a cousin of mine decided that they had to get married on the same day, so I couldn't go to Shirley MacLaine's thing because I'm Italian. You got to go to your cousin's wedding. It's a law.
You got to go to your cousin's wedding.
Got to go to your cousin's wedding. Otherwise, they send Uncle Nunzio out after you. I'm telling you. So I missed it, but I had a chance to really, get involved with that and understand and read, and so that helped me a lot. That's what was going on. It was all these external things started directing me, and I started meeting people, and I was directed to the Edgar Cayce material, and that what gave me my basic foundation of understanding what was going on and just helped me feel better. But I still didn't know what to do with it. I still wanted to be an actor, and now I have psychic gifts too, and so I was like, so what? What do you want from me? I didn't know what they wanted from me, though I did use it to start helping my friend, which I was able to do and turn his life around. And so he was actually my first spiritual student, but I still didn't. I wanted an Oscar one day. I wanted an Oscar one day, Marianne. I didn't want to read palms.
Well, and I can understand because you were in Greece, weren't you?
Yes, the movie, not the country. And yes, that famous movie. I know I was a singer and dancer in that movie, Grease. It's my biggest claim to fame. And it was just an incredible beginning that way, and that's what actually made me think that I was going to continue as a professional actor because I had, great beginnings, even though we didn't know that was going to be such a great movie that it turned out to be. My grandchildren are now watching that, and they do not believe. They said, Poppy, that's not you. I'm like, I know it's hard to believe because it was almost 40 years ago I did that movie.
That's crazy. Yeah, I can't believe it's been that long, And it just, it's interesting because you've got this, combination of being a psychic medium. You've got just these credentials behind you because you're also a hospice clinical social worker. Is that correct?
I actually was a hospice clinical social worker. I became, because I hated the idea. Okay, so it was being shoved down my throat, obviously, that I had to do something with my psychic skills because they were coming. It was coming every single day. I was getting the advice. People started calling me up out of the clear blue, talking with me, asking me for advice and things like that. So I said, all right, I'll go along with it. But I certainly do not want to refer to myself as a psychic, and I am not putting a palm hanging up outside my door where it says Brother Vinny. I was Cousin Vinny, not Brother Vinny next to Sister Sarah, that you see over in the highways, right?
Oh, yeah.
And So I decided, and by chance something had happened, and Providence wound up getting me to go back to school because I was in an automobile accident and I couldn't do the work that I was doing full time then for a career, or actually for a livelihood, while I was pursuing everything. And so I went back to school and got my credentials and my degree, a BA in psychology and a master's in clinical social work. And I started my own practice, and I started being a counselor. All right, that I can do. I'm going to be a psychotherapist. That's great. Actually, I was a psychic psychotherapist. So, I'm telling you, it gave me great insight. And the craziest thing about that is, normally people have to go to therapists for years in order to resolve their problems, but I would bring them right to the issue within a short time. My supervisors used to say to me, "Wow, Vinny, you have this sixth sense when you deal with your clients, and you can diagnose them within 5 minutes of meeting them, and it usually takes us longer than that, but you're so accurate." And they couldn't understand it. Of course, I did. And so I started doing that. Yeah.
It was your superpower that you were not sharing with anybody.
No, I wasn't, but it was really fun. You had to see me as a therapist, because here we are, we're taught that is very important, and there's also policies that you have to follow when you have your license for the client to come to their own answers. And so, okay, so I'm sitting there doodling while I'm going, like you're supposed to. And they're talking, and I have the answer down and what the issue is, and I want to jump there, and I'm waiting week after week in order for them to get there. And it became so frustrating. And I was still doing psychic readings part-time, so there was two groups of people, the people that were, drawn to the metaphysics and were going for readings, and then the mainstream people who would just go for therapy. And it became a little bit frustrating, and then eventually I just decided I didn't want to do therapy anymore. And so a friend of mine who was working at Duke asked me if I'd be interested in working with the dying, and I was like, whoa, wow, never saw that coming. And something intuitively told me that was going to help me. It was going to help me, and it was going to give me greater skills and ability. And let me tell you something, Marianne. There is nothing greater than working with the dying, because number one, they don't have the defense mechanisms and the resistance to making connections when they're dying, when they've been told that they have only months to live or less than that, and so they open up quicker, especially if you're willing to go there. And in my working with over 500 patients during the time that I worked for Duke, I learned the greatest things about living from working with the people about dying and who were dying. And so it was interesting, because I was wondering when my next change and transition, what was I going to do next? Things started to get a little rough at Duke. Things became a business, even dying became a business in healthcare. And so I wanted out. And a car accident, another car accident. I have to find out why my soul pushes me out of what I need to do, because I am obstinate. Okay, it takes me a while to listen to my own intuition, right? Both times I was in a car accident, and it changed my life completely. So once again, I'm in this car accident, and this time I suffer some brainstem injury. I can't drive anymore because I have double vision. So not only can I not be a hospice social worker, I can't be a clinical social worker or a therapist at all, because here in the state of North Carolina, most of those jobs require you to drive. And they want you to have a valid license so that you can do outreach work with clients and things like that. They don't want to know that you can't drive around. So now I'm home, I'm on workers' comp, I'm trying to figure out, all right, now what am I supposed to do full time? And all of a sudden people started calling me and asking me to do a reading. I'm like, what do you mean do a reading? I hadn't even advertised it. Then all of a sudden I was getting phone calls and producers were asking me to speak at one of their events and in different parts of the country. So slowly but surely, it evolved into a full-time career by itself without my resistance now. See, I was resisting it all along, and I said, you know what, I'm going to give up my psychotherapy license because it takes too long that way to help people. Mm-hmm. I can go right to the core of the issue. And so I just gave you my life story in that one question. You're an amazing questioner, I'm telling you.
Well, you have an amazing life, so it's easy to just get, kind of dive into this. And I've got to ask you, so is that kind of where your spiritual counseling and mentoring kind of developed from, was the need to help people in a more and a deeper capacity, as opposed to having it be like a psychic medium appointment?
Well, it's evolved into both, and that's what makes me so different. And I call myself not only the solution psychic, but the transformational psychic and the big leap psychic, because I have made an agreement with the universe. I said, okay, I'll take this on. I gave up professional acting and said that, and I did that when my daughter was born. Though I always wanted to perform, I said, okay, if I'm not doing that and touching people's souls, then I'm going to do this and touch people's souls, and I want to be able to help. So show me how. And it just kept evolving and evolving and evolving. And then all of a sudden it came to this. It took a while, like I said, but it combined every single one of my skills and 36 years now of everything. So as a performer, I know how to touch a person's heart, right? And that's what we do as performers. We're on stage, and literally we hold your emotions in the palm of our hands, and we can make you cry, and we can make you laugh, and we can make you smile, and we can touch your heart. So that's a part of me that I use. I knew that was going to be important, to touch the heart and the soul, because the messages were going to be so deep. And then the psychic part of me immediately sees where the issues are, what the blocks are. And then the psychological expertise within me shows me what the psyche is and what it's doing to manipulate and resist and protect and defend against those blockages. And so all of it together, I can get in there deep and emotionally and go right to the core of the problem, right to the festering infection. And so I tell people that my 1-hour sessions are like 12 years of therapy. And many times they do leave that exhausted, but feeling great, like so relieved, and as if the greatest burdens released off their shoulders. All people want to know is, one, that they're heard, that they matter, that their pains matter, right? And while I was going to school as a social worker, the most interesting things that were occurring there in the program I went through, it was only adults. It wasn't kids just graduating from undergrad degrees. They wanted more experienced students in this particular program, so it was all adults. And we used to, right away from the first day of class, we would do our internship, and I went right into the field in counseling, and I worked at counseling and psychological services at the university I was attending, and we would then gather in class, and we would share our experiences, and all you heard from these clinical social workers, students, is how petrified they were and nervous they were that they were going to hurt the person. And, oh, my gosh, it's so nerve-wracking. And, oh, okay, I'm learning. I got to do the best I can, and I don't know what to do, and I'm this and I'm that. And it would come to me, and I'm like, I'm feeling really strong and confident that I'm helping them. And they were like, oh, my gosh, that's overconfidence. Vincent, that's no good. You're too confident there. You're supposed to be insecure about this. Chances are you can hurt somebody. I said, no, you're wrong. If you only just sit there, what am I supposed to do? These students are coming to me, and the sign doesn't say he's an intern and he may mess you up while you're sitting in front of you. You know, they're coming to me for help. And, you know, if you just sit there and care to listen to them and care about what they're saying, they're going to get help. And maybe I don't have all the tools in the world to give them answers on how to change this and cope with this and get rid of that anxiety. But in the meantime, we're one-on-one humans, and I have compassion and I am caring, and that is healing them, and that's what I automatically assume. And they couldn't understand that, how I would believe that. But, of course, my background in the psychic part of me, I already knew that. And the teachers would tell me, says, well, obviously you're more advanced and you understand these things, so have patience and understand your fellow peers here that they have to grow into learning that. But I just knew that they were being helped. And so that was my greatest desire and motivation, especially having lived an incredibly tormented youth. That was my background. Until I was 17 years old, I was the guy who was picked on in school daily and then beat when I got home by my parents because they had their own mental pathologies going on. I had the sexual abuse. I experienced all of that, so I knew what it feels, and I know what it feels like to have no self-esteem, no self-value, no self-love, no self-belief. And so my goal and my destiny became to help others believe in themselves. That's the motivation for all the work that I do. So yes, it is counseling, it is years of therapy, it is psychic, it's paranormal, it's metaphysical, and most of all, it's spiritual, and it's empowering. That's what I do.
Well, it's so powerful, and especially, you know, I so appreciate you sharing your background with us because it's always been said, like, you can't give somebody something that you don't have. So unless you've been able to walk a certain path and maybe child abuse or whatever the case is, it's really hard to understand how to lead people out if they're feeling a certain way in regards to what they've encountered during, you know, those different things that have happened to them during a lifetime. And it seems to me that with the things that you've gone through, you can help so many people because you have an understanding of what it's like. You've been there. You know, you've come out the other side.
Absolutely. I know, you know, and each story that sits in front of me can even be worse than mine, Marianne. It's unbelievable. However, as beings and as spiritual beings, we don't have to go through every single pain that there is in life, you know, every single circumstance where you can get hurt in order to understand that it can hurt, in order to understand how a person can develop their resentments, their resistance, their angers, their rage, their loss of hope. You just have to only experience a few, really. And when you do, yes, then you're relatable. And whoever, like you said, whoever wants to sit in front of somebody who has had nothing but a glorious life and yet give advice on how to feel good about yourself. Well, sure, it's easy for you to be able to say that. You've never been through any pain. You've never been dumped on. You've never been, you know, thrown away or given up by your parents, and you've never been abandoned or rejected. It's impossible. And the proof of that is what? Every substance abuse program is always led by a previous substance abuser, right?
Yeah. Yeah, it's people who understand what people are going through, people in either substance abuse or alcoholism or whatever the case may be. They understand what, they've been there. They understand how to get out.
Yeah. The interesting thing is one time in my recently over the past few years in my renownedness, because now that I've been around for a while, an old classmate who used to pick on me had written me on social media, and he wrote and he said, "You're full of crap." He said, "I grew up with you since you were in 4th grade, and I never saw anything happen to you, and I never, and I don't believe that you went through all of that. I think you're doing this all for attention, and yada, 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 yada." And he went off. And it was so funny because he was one of my major tormentors and completely forgot one of the most horrible things and humiliating things that he had done to me. But I did realize that, that people are going to come from different directions at me. The majority of people accept it, and I tell everybody I only share my story. Here's the difference. You look at Facebook and people air their garbage all over the place, right? And they're doing it because they need attention. Well, I've never, ever aired anything like that on Facebook. I usually do that just on radio shows or programs like yourself, only to be an inspiration, only to let people know exactly what we just said. I understand your pain. You don't need to go, "Oh, Vinny, no, I took care of that. And yes, I am still dealing with some of those scars, and little Vinny gets in the way, and you may see that little Vinny hurt Vinny someday. But that's not to say that I need any of that type of attention. I want you to see that our early stories are only chapter 1 of the complete novel we're here to write. And any success story always starts with some trauma in the beginning, because that's what helps to motivate you into the success and shape you and sculpt you. I don't know if anybody has ever seen somebody work on a sculpture, but I remember I read stories about Michelangelo when he used to sculpt his great marble statues, right? There'd be shards of marble going everywhere. Matter of fact, he used to have to wear a bandana around his mouth and nose because he would inhale the fumes, the powder, and he would get shards in his eyes and in his skin, and there would be mess everywhere, all over the place, right? And then finally he'd polish it and shine it, and now we know what those statues look like and how magnificent they are. Well, that's what I say everybody's life is. It's like you're sculpting the most magnificent statue if you continue the chiseling and don't give up, no matter how messy it becomes.
Yeah.
Right?
And that's such a beautiful, I just love that you shared that, because that's such a beautiful analogy, and it's so true. Because I kind of look at it, I've shared this many times, where we're kind of like the diamond in the rough, and we have many facets, and so it's like today we're polishing, maybe it's, how we get along with other people, and tomorrow it could be something different, It's always a different facet of ourselves that we are bringing forth and really kind of making it that masterpiece.
Oh, and I actually love that too, because how does coal become diamonds? It's through pressure, and just you feel the world crushing all around you sometimes, right? And as long as you hold up and you don't give in and you continue, you become that beautiful diamond. So that's a great analogy. I love that one too. If you don't mind, I'd like to add that to my analogies when I tell my stories. Okay, and I will credit you for it. I will credit you for it, Marianne.
I don't need the credit. I'm sure it came from somewhere else too.
I know, right? Yes, I say the same thing. I say at this point in life, there is really nothing new we can say. We can only say it in a different way.
Although I have to say, when you probably were first doing readings and decide, okay, I'm going to do this. I can only guess that you'd wake up and there are all these spirits around your bed staring at you or something,
Oh,
that probably was a new thing.
I know, that's interesting. Well, the funny thing is, I used it for the very beginning years. My wife and I would have a laugh all the time when saying it, because I would turn around and I'd say, hey, watch out. Your mother's watching, we've got your grandparents up there, and that, and your uncle's over there, and so we would laugh a lot. But I have to be honest, the one thing that people have to understand that they're in control of their entire lives, even the metaphysical part, right? And even the psychic part that we are all connected with. So when I was choosing to do this, I made arrangements with the universe where I'm included. I'm part of the universe and the God source. And I said, okay, listen, I am going to do this, but I have a couple of rules. Number one, there will be no spirits that are knocking on my door at 3 o'clock in the morning because they have a message for me to get to their aunt, their uncle, their son, their daughter, okay? No angels, how much sleep I need, so I don't expect that you're going to be bothering me in the middle of the night. And no negative information for any client unless it is something that they can use to help change their life and help them in some way. If they are meant to die on Tuesday and they can't do anything about it on Monday when they come to see me, I don't want to know it, okay? And I'll actually tell my clients that. Yes,
yeah.
And I'll tell my clients that. I say, you have absolutely no reason to fear a reading with me because you will not hear anything that's not going to help you. And so if you do die tomorrow and I didn't warn you today, do not come back and spook me because I'm going to tell you, well, you couldn't do anything about it. That was your soul's plan. There was no reason for you to know about it. So, yes, now if you're going to a party tonight, and you're going to drink heavily and then get in your car and I see you getting in the car, driving, getting into an accident and dying that way, yes, then I'll tell you that. And I'll tell you don't do that because then you can avoid that. So that's the only way. Or even when I see cancers, or which I do, I'm a medical intuitive and I can see inside the body. I have saved many people's lives. I feel so blessed by this because I've seen tumors. And tumors that doctors never picked up on. And I just did this recently with a couple of women, and they went to their doctor, and it was so funny. It was after a psychic party I did for my daughter-in-law. She had some friends who wanted readings from me, and two of the women, I saw masses inside of them, and I was pretty strong about it, and I said, you need to have that checked and let the doctor decide what to do, and even if it's really there, I feel it, I see it, but go have it checked. So these women went to their doctors, and one of the doctors just insistent, there's nothing wrong with you, I'm not giving you a sonogram or an ultrasound, is that you have no symptoms, why should we waste money on that? And she says, I don't care, I need it. Now, she never told me whether she actually told the doctor or psychic told me. She went back 3 times before that doctor decided, okay, I'll give you an ultrasound and I'm going to show you there's nothing going on. He found the mass. And he apologized, and he didn't understand how she knew, but he said, you found it early enough. Had we waited any longer, this would have been a completely different situation, but I can get that out, and there's not going to be any problems because we found it so early. Same thing happened with the other woman. So it's an incredible gift to have, but it's also an incredible responsibility. And so I always use some guidance with it because I have to be so careful in the way I deliver my messages to people, because people will come to me with cancers already wanting to know if they're going to die.
It's got to be so tough. And, and for our listeners that are probably listening going, gosh, that's kind of harsh. Why wouldn't you tell somebody and stop them from dying? There's a lot of responsibility that comes with getting information that maybe some people are not aware of. And it's like how you touched on before, it could be the soul plan, is that's what's meant to happen. It could be that you are getting information from God source saying, that's not for you to say, so there's lots of different things. It's huge responsibility. I think it's so brilliant of you to kind of put that down as, gosh, if I can't do anything about it, if I can't give them the information, I don't want to know.
Right. I don't want the responsibility myself, because here's the thing, Marianne, it's not for me to judge, it's for me to honor. If the words, one of the things we need to all do for ourselves, and I teach how to be psychic and a medium, and my classes have been very powerful for people actually changing their lives, because the major thing I'm teaching them is how to honor their inner voice. It's your greatest gift. It's your greatest guidance. Not your ears to listen to somebody else's advice, but your inner ears to listen to the advice that naturally comes to you on a daily basis. But we don't trust it because we're not raised and nurtured into trusting it. And so I have to teach people how to redo that, because children have natural intuition. They listen to their gut feelings without knowing that that's what they're doing, right? And we actually teach it out of them by instilling fears. And so the doors close, and then you distrust those words that come to you. I have a great workshop called God, It's Not Working. It's actually on my online store to download. It's an amazing research piece that I had discovered where I understand that people don't believe what they think they believe because their adult defense mechanisms are so strong, they create a separate set of beliefs to protect them from what they're really believing about themselves. And so the reason why things aren't working in their lives, though we are unlimited manifesting beings, is because they don't believe what they think they believe, and they don't believe in themselves. And so I show that, prove that, and give evidence to that, and then turn it around and teach people how to change that. But that's the biggest problem. People do not believe in themselves. And so that's you're not going to get the guidance if you don't believe it.
Well, yeah, because you're telling the universe, I don't believe it. So
Right.
Why would or God source, it's like, so why would you get information then if you're not having some faith? Because it does require a bit of faith.
It is, and I bet you use so much of that yourself, Marianne, because one of the biggest feelings that I get from you is that you have a tremendous amount of faith,
Oh, thank you. I use it a lot, but don't tell anybody, okay?
Okay, I won't. I won't. We'll keep it under wraps here. I know, right?
Yeah, definitely keep it under wraps.
The magic bullet.
Yeah. Well, and I so enjoyed listening to, gosh, because you've been on TV, you've been on, syndicated radio stations all across the U.S. You've just been all over the place. And you talked about, in one of them, crystals and different things that people use as a tool for, like, either healing themselves or clearing their space or whatever, and how basically it's like their vibration is enough,
Yes. You see, all of the past luminaries and spiritual teachers, right, they brought us to a different understanding and a different consciousness that was necessary. We needed to leave the ideas of science and religion as not being the be-all, end-all answers, and we needed to get to another level, understanding that we're spiritual beings having a physical experience. Well, all of the past luminaries and the New Age and New Thought movements did that. However, the way they taught it was exactly the way elementary school teachers teach history to elementary school students. They teach it in a way they believe they're going to understand it. The funny thing is, when you go to school and you learn about history, whether it be the world or the United States, when you're in elementary school, they're only teaching you certain history. all of a sudden, if you go to college, I advise anybody to take college history, even one course, because you will hear an amazing different story that you never heard when you were the child, because they didn't think you can handle it then. Then they tell you the truth. Right? Well, spirituality is the exact same thing. All of the past teachers brought us to a level that the universe figured we could handle. So there are some missing pieces, and there's also some pieces that are not absolutely correct, but were taught to us so that we can handle them. I happen to be one of the newer people that seem to be, because all I get are corrections and fill in the gaps now. And so things like the idea and the understanding of the power of crystals and aromatherapy and all of the, crystal beds and healing beds and salts and this and that, all of these therapeutic modes, Reiki, Rolfing, which is on the extreme, physical end, all of those modes help to get us to a different understanding and began us healing in a different way other than traditional medicine. However, what is now happening is we are giving credit to a rock for changing our lives and getting rid of our cancers. Something's wrong with that. We are giving credit. Yes. Something is wrong when we need to walk around our houses burning herbs like sage in order to get rid of negative energy. And so the more we keep doing that, the more we give away our powers. I always go back to the core, and I do have to say I'm not religious. However, I was introduced to Jesus as being my major guide and helper through this entire journey, and he has been, and he's more like a brother and a friend now than anything else, and I completely understand him and who he was, and it's nothing like he's been taught about. But there were things he said that I always pay attention to. He never once picked up a rock and handed it to a person that had leprosy and said, use this to heal you. He put his hand on them. They were healed. He said, it was your faith that healed you. And what the actual process was that everybody has to understand. People came to him because they believed so deeply in what he believed, because he believed it so deeply. So they believed he actually believed they could be healed. That was their faith. It wasn't even as much as he was the healer, as much as it was that I can be healed, and that's what Jesus turned around and put on them. You're healed because you finally believed you can be. I only instigated it, but you're the one who conducted it. And so with that in mind, I need to empower people. Yes, everything on this earth has properties. All the herbs have properties. All the vitamins, all the nutritions, all the stones, all the trees, all the animals, they all have a vibration and an energy. And they can affect us in a positive way or a negative way if we allow them. So we actually empower the properties of those crystals. Yes, amethyst helps to bring spiritual awareness more, but not if you don't believe it. I use this metaphor, and I'll ask you this question. It's not a trick question, and I probably know what your answer is going to be, and it's going to be normal and what everybody says. If a tree falls in the forest and there is no human there to hear it, does it still make a noise?
Well, I might surprise you. My answer is going to be no.
Oh, good. No, good. I'm glad you didn't surprise me. That's fabulous. Of course it doesn't make a noise. I can't tell you how many other people say, yes, it does make a noise. No, it doesn't. Mm-hmm. It makes a vibration. And it requires a human ear to translate the vibration into the actual sound we hear. Even animals don't translate the vibration into the same sound. They hear something completely different, and some even just feel not hear at all. So it is us that empowers everything on this planet, and we were told that from the very beginning. So it is us that can heal ourselves. It is us. So if you want to hold that stone, don't get me wrong. I've got beautiful crystals. I have a John of God crystal that I was given, and another beautiful artist crystal that's an angel. I wear a woman who makes these incredible bracelets. They're made of Swarovski crystals, but she embeds her vibrations in them. I wear them because I like them.
Yeah.
And I use them to remind me of my own powers and abilities. So yes, if you want to wear the crystal, if you want to wear the necklace, the bracelet, carry a pendant, it doesn't matter as long as you realize you are the one empowering that. So yes, that's one of my other ones. So I wind up contradicting or correcting or filling in the gaps. My greatest one that you need to hear is the idea that your ego and God are one. Your ego is not your enemy. Your defense mechanisms are, and that is the biggest fallacy and myth that most people don't understand. And I definitely correct that one. So that's another one.
Do you know it? And we are actually going to talk about that another time. I think that's such an intriguing discussion. And unfortunately, we are just almost close to the end of our time here today. I could talk to you for hours about all this stuff. My goodness.
Oh, my God. And I talk for hours as it is, Marianne. So I could be a host blessing and worst nightmare at the same time. You do realize that.
Oh, no, you're a blessing. Don't worry about that. I don't see you as a nightmare.
Thank you.
Well, and so Vincent, let's say someone wants to schedule like a spiritual counseling or just have a session with you, an appointment with you. Where can they go and where can they be part of your community?
Oh, it's real easy. Thanks for asking. If you go to my website at vincentgenna.com, and that's with a Genna, you can book appointments right on there. There's a button. You hit book now. It'll take you to a calendar, let you know my availability, my fees, everything like that. That's one of the first ways. I give my email address for people who have any questions and a phone number, business phone number for anybody to contact me with any questions that they have. And I have my wife is my incredible business manager who helps me out and who responds back to people when I can't. Then if you join me on my Facebook page at Vincent Genna, MSW, I do live events where I will do free readings for people because I want to be able to help as many people as possible, and it's really difficult to do that many private readings for people. So I will answer questions. I'll make some spiritual connections for you with deceased loved ones during that live event. I usually do that the first Wednesday of every month. But besides that, you can just be on there and talk with me back and forth and see some of my events. And I put out a lot of affirmations and spiritual information and content. And also, if you do sign up on my website and register there, I have a great lecture called Life is a Hallmark Moment that you will be given as a gift for signing up. And I do not inundate people with emails upon emails, but I do let people know where I'm going to be since I do travel around, and you can come see me live at some of my events. And also, there is information especially during these trying times, I try to put out some real helpful content. So to answer people's questions, how do I remain spiritual in this very negative, anger-filled time period and self-filled time period. And so I do things like that to try to help people. So if they register, then it'll be well-deserving.
Well, I've registered, and I've actually joined all of your social media, and I highly suggest people do. And I am clicks away from booking an appointment with you, so I highly advise everyone go and book an appointment before Vincent gets so popular you can't book any appointments. So go ahead and book your...
Well, yeah, we're working on that right now, a matter of fact. So there may be a time that I won't be able to do individual readings, but I'll still continue to do my events for sure, because I love being able to be out there with a group of people, too.
Oh, I can definitely see that. I mean, you're so amazingly gifted. My goodness. You know, Vincent, thank you so much for taking the time to be on the show with us here today.
Marianne, you're a sweetheart and a living angel for inviting me. You got to remember that it's people like you that get to put out my message, too, so you're just as much of a help to me as my own individual work. So thank you so much for that.
Well, thank you, Vincent. It's been such a joy to spend this time with you today. One last thing to share. I know that you have an event tomorrow, November 5th, on Awaken the Psychic and Medium Within. And people can look on your website at vincentgenna.com to learn more about that. That event's going to be at Ions Earthrise in California. So again, that will be vincentgenna.com for an event for tomorrow. So, well, that's all the time we have for today. I'd like to thank everyone for taking the time to tune in. You've been listening to Moments with Marianne. And remember, make every moment count.
In a single moment, your life can change. Moments with Marianne is a transformative hour that covers an endless array of topics with the best of the best. Her guests are leaders in their fields, ranging from inspirational authors, top industry leaders, and business and spiritual entrepreneurs. Each guest is gifted and a true visionary, a recognized leader in her own work, and while teaching others to develop, refocus, and grow, Marianne will bring the best guest and sometimes a special surprise. Don't miss this. You never know just which moment will change your life forever. Moments with Marianne airs every Thursday, Friday, and Sunday at 8 p.m. Eastern, 6 p.m. Mountain Time. Make sure to tune in and visit momentswithmarianne.com for more information.